Today we're going to do something that I really haven't done in a while, and it's make a test drive video. I used to do these in the past where I would hop in one of the cars, I would take it on our normal test drive route that we use here at Schumacher Chevrolet of Livingston, and I would give you my impressions along the way and what my thoughts are on that particular vehicle. Since we never really have these vehicles here, I'm going to do it today on the 3500 Dually Duramax 6.6 liter diesel engine truck. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think it'll also give me a chance to kind of get an impression on what these vehicles are really like, because we don't have them here often. So I should drive them, I should get in them, I should feel them out. This way I can better explain the experience to customers that are looking to either order or buy them. First things first, I talked about it in the last video on this truck. It's a diesel. It sounds like a diesel, but it's quiet. It's not overbearing at all, but the sound is enough to let you know it's a diesel. So we're sitting inside the truck. We're gonna go on a test drive. First thing we're gonna do is, well, let me buckle up my seatbelt here. We're gonna do that. Then we're gonna adjust these mirrors. Now the mirrors on this truck, they do have the two different mirrors. You have the upper one and you have the lower one. Upper one is power with your power controls here. So I'm just gonna adjust the two of those so we're good to go. The bottom one you actually have to manually move yourself with your hand. Now I'm not exactly sure where you're supposed to set those mirrors to, but for the purpose of this test drive I have them set so I can actually see the lower portion of the of that dual rear wheel, so I can see that dual rear wheel and that fender that comes out much wider than the actual truck, because I want to make sure as I'm making my turns that I'm clearing things as I do so. So that's the second thing we did. Seat is comfortable. This is full power, of course, in the high country. It's heated, it's ventilated. You have all the different comfort options that one may want. Now that we have all that set up, I think we're good to go. Even though these mirrors are big, they're awkward. It's not like looking at a regular mirror. I don't know if it's because there's two different mirrors you can look at. The driver one is okay, but for some reason the passenger one, when I look at it, it takes me a second to kind of focus and catch my bearings on where we actually are and where I'm actually seeing. I imagine you'd get used to that in time, like anything else. Here's the front of the showroom. Again, Schumacher Chevrolet of Livingston is where I work. My name is Dave B, and I'd like to ask you, just real quick, check, are you subscribed to the channel? If you're not, and you can click that subscription button, that would be awesome. I would truly appreciate it. Especially if you watch the videos and you're not subscribed. Couple more cars here. We're gonna pull out on Route 10. This is our first little test of acceleration, pulling out onto a highway type road. What we do is we go right to the right here and we start down this road. Now the reason we go down this road is it's fairly bumpy in spots. That should give us a pretty good suspension test on how this 3500 is going to handle choppy roads while empty. We know it'll have a little bit of a stiffer suspension to handle the payload. Oh yeah, to handle the payload of what this truck can do. The GoPro is probably doing a pretty good job keeping everything nice and smooth, but you definitely feel a little choppiness. It's not overbearing. It's stiff. It's a stiff ride for sure on this particular road. Now this road is like a washboard. It's pretty bumpy. Now although it's bumpy and the truck is stiff, it handles it pretty nicely, pretty smoothly, and it's nice, it's comfortable. A couple of things I want to point out on this is, how does the truck feel, the drive, the acceleration, the 10-speed transmission, how does it shift, and the steering feel. And the steering feel is what I'm going to talk about first. The steering is very light. It's light, but it's precise. When I say light, I mean it's very easy to just steer and move this wheel. It doesn't feel like a sporty type steering that's tight. It definitely has a softer feel. However, it's very confidence inspiring in that exactly where you point this wheel, the truck heads. There's no play in it. As soon as you make any movement, as you can see, the truck kind of immediately responds to it. You think this thing will fit in a parking spot? Let's try it out. Now imagine if you have a vehicle like this, you're obviously not going to be parking close. You're probably going to park far away because this truck will take up the entire spot. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull into a spot over here and we're going to see how it fits. All right, so let's say I'm going to park over here. Oh, this truck's a beast. This truck's way too big for a parking spot. Let me actually spin it around so the sun's not directly on the camera here. We're going to use the camera to see how we line ourselves up in the spot. So we're oh, where'd the camera go? All right, that's about it. And actually, I'm going to back up right about there. Let's go take a look. All right, as you can see, actually I have about another foot that I can roll up here. Our rear wheels are right at the line. We're well extended into a spot, the spot behind us. And here we're a little bit on the line. So the width is okay. It's just a matter of the length. The truck is way too long for your average parking spot in your average New Jersey strip mall. And our test drive is going to continue in this parking lot. The turning radius is not bad. It's we already talked about how the steering feels like soft and light, so it's very easy to maneuver around, especially at slower speeds here. I'm curious as we get onto the highway if it feels like the steering is kind of tightening up. But as big as this truck is, it is very maneuverable, you know, just to make like your simple turns like you would. I can take the turn wide to make sure I have clearance for the dual rear wheels, yet I can still, you know, swing that front end around perfectly. What I'm gonna do is go into this parking lot here. Let's do a turning circle and just see if we can tell how tight a turning radius this truck has. So if we loop around this pole here, I'm just gonna turn it all the way. It's not bad. It takes up about a parking spot and a half. This is some real scientific measuring I'm doing here. The turning radius was just like that. So far in these slow speeds, just maneuvering around parking lots and stuff like that, the transmission shifts super smooth and quiet and quick. Like, it's a 10-speed automatic. You can hear it kind of running through like the first, second, third gear pretty quickly as you're accelerating around, even though we're not really doing any kind of speed. That should, you know, also be true as we get out on the road on the highway, where it'll keep us in a higher gear for mileage purposes and to keep the RPM range down. But you have all those gears, so you know when you're asking the vehicle to accelerate, you have a tremendous amount of versatility and combinations with that transmission to make sure the power gets put to the road immediately. There's something about driving a truck like this. I love it. I think it's awesome. It's like I'm driving a rig. It's a huge truck. It's the dual rear wheel. It's got that diesel sound, the diesel torque. That was the forward collision alert you just saw there. So the camera picked up that silver car and felt, because I wasn't, I guess, on the brake, that I should be warned. So not only did it flash those lights you just saw in the window, or I hope you saw in the window, it also vibrated the seat, which gave me an alert, you know, as if I was looking down or something like that, to kind of look up. Coming around this turn here is our first chance to kind of get on the throttle and accelerate a little bit on this little merging ramp. We're only bringing her up to about 2,300 RPM. We're already at speed, which is 50, 55. So, you know, one thing I'm noticing as I'm driving this truck is it's very effortless to just drive around normally, right? It doesn't take too much to just get this big, heavy truck moving. You know, it's got 910 foot-pounds of torque. You achieve that torque very quickly at about, I think it's about 1,600 RPM. And with that 10-speed transmission like we were talking about, you know, you always have the right gear for the right time. So like if I want to get on the throttle right now and accelerate, you know, it's going to downshift a little bit and it's going to bring us right up to, you know, 70 miles an hour like nothing. You know, so it's a very efficient system. It seems to work very well. It's very smooth. And it's very easy to drive. I don't know if that really makes sense. As big as this truck is, it doesn't feel all that much different than driving just like a regular SUV or a regular Suburban or a Tahoe, something like that, other than the fact that it's a little stiffer, so you're bouncing a little bit more, you're feeling a little bit more of the road underneath you. And obviously you got to be mindful that you have these big wheel wells out back that are taking up quite a bit of space. The back width at those wheel wells is about 8 feet wide. You know, the standard lane, I believe, is 12 feet wide on smaller roads like this, maybe 10, maybe 11, something like that. So you just gotta be mindful of the fact that you have a lot going on behind you there that you have to account for. But driving little roads like this, making these turns, I mean, with just a hand lightly on the wheel, it's more than, you know, you're more than confident driving this down the road. I could picture just long hauling this across the country. You're pulling your trailer in the back, you know, whatever it may be. You actually can access the camera angle to see your fifth wheel hookup right on the screen here. Now you'd have to do a couple button pushes. Once you push it once, you can go to that bed camera view, and you'll see your fifth wheel, or you'll see your trailer, whatever you're pulling, whatever you're towing. You'll see behind you there. You can kind of check on it, and you know, make sure everything looks and is acting the way that it should. Just gonna take this jug handle here, which most of our customers do, heading back up towards the dealership. While we're waiting for this red light here, the wheels on this truck, it's the 17-inch wheels. As you can see here pictured, this now has the actual wheel caps on them. They didn't have those on in the previous video. There were a couple comments about the wheels looking plain, so maybe this dresses them up a little bit for you, maybe not. They definitely look a little bit better than they did in the previous video, just having those chrome center caps and everything installed on the truck. The torque in this truck definitely feels great. I'm gonna kind of get on a little bit here. Yeah, this truck just pulls. You know, it's a different kind of power in a vehicle like this, in my opinion, because it doesn't rev high. The truck's revving 3,000, 3,500, you know, that sort of thing. But there's so much torque that it does pick up speed, and it gets to where you want it to be pretty quickly, with what feels and sounds like very little effort. I'll give you an idea of how much this truck really does take up. If you look at the right-hand side there in that small mirror, we're probably about 6 inches from the yellow line on the left. And if we look at the right, we're probably, what, about maybe a foot on the right. So we have, you know, call it about 18 inches to spare within the lane, depending on, you know, where you are in it. Again, taking a little extra time and a little extra concentration to drive something like this, which in time, again, I'm sure pretty much anybody can get used to. The seat in the truck is comfortable. I feel very relaxed. I actually don't mind the layout of the interior. I know the interior, you know, is obviously criticized because Ford and Ram have sort of surpassed us as far as interior trim and the interior amenities. Well, not really amenities. We have all the same type of stuff. It's just laid out differently, and those trucks sort of get a better, you know, they get a better score right now, which, you know, is to be expected. It's newer, it's updated, and our new updated interiors are on the way. I feel this truck coasts very well. Like, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm tapping the throttle and accelerating, and I'm kind of letting it go and just rolling and coasting, and it holds its speed pretty good. Now, this does have an engine exhaust brake, which I can turn on, and when you turn that on, the diesel exhaust brake is going to actually use, I guess, back pressure or so to help slow the vehicle down. And by doing that, it can help you on hills, and it can help you controlling weight that you're pulling and those sort of things to basically help you use less actual brake pedal and maintain a more steady speed. I've never actually used one for any length of time, so I really can't speak on how it feels and how it helps, but on paper, it does a fantastic job. The truck definitely sounds cool. I don't know if that acceleration air, you know, kind of transmits through the camera, but it does have a cool sound as a diesel. And we're gonna whip a sharp turn here to kind of show you turning radius. Again, like we did earlier, you know, it's a highly maneuverable vehicle that's just way too big for any parking spot that you'll ever find anywhere. I mentioned earlier about being subscribed, and if you're not, please do. If you're interested in seeing, or I should say hearing, what an MBRP exhaust sounds like on that 2022 Camaro ZL1, because that video is probably going to be videoed on Wednesday. So either Wednesday or Thursday, that video should be up. We already had a video on that vehicle talking about it. We're going to go to the next step. It's part 2. It's the exhaust, and let me tell you something. The exhaust sounds amazing. Oh! So that concludes our test drive of this 3500 Dually HD Duramax diesel Chevy Silverado. Now, it's tough to obviously get a feel for this stuff if you're not actually in the vehicle. So I recommend go to your local Chevy store, test drive some Chevrolet product so you can feel for yourself what it's really like. But hopefully I gave you just a little bit of insight that might help you with any kind of decision-making process. If you have any kind of questions, put them in the comments below. I'll answer them, and I'll see you in the next video shortly.